So if you have been following me for a little bit, you will know that at the beginning of this school year, I had said that we were diving full into classical education, that we were just going to take all of the guardrails off and we were just going to go straight for it and be purists. And I have changed my mind. So let's talk about it. So first of all, if you're new around here, hi, my name is Brittany and I am a homeschooling mom to 4 kids, ages high school down to kindergarten. And on this channel, I like to talk all things homeschool and homemaking. So if that is of interest to you, I'd love it if you'd stick around and subscribe. So first of all, welcome to my front porch again, because it is currently the weekend and I have a bunch of people in my house. And so therefore it's loud and it's hard to film. So we're just gonna film out here. Full disclosure, this was not the video I was going to film today. So hopefully it goes okay. If you're seeing this, and I'm guessing it did. The video I had prepared was not quite ready to go out. So I need something to fill in. This is something I wanted to talk about for a while, so we're going to dive into it. So I'm not doing full classical. So what does that mean that I'm doing? We are moving back into doing a classical and Charlotte Mason approach blended together. So why are we doing this? I love both approaches. I love the rigor of classical. I love the idea of the trivium quite a lot, and it just makes sense for my brain. But there are some things that I love about Charlotte Mason and the way that it is done with a lot of narrations and a lot of dictation and copy work, and just some of the ways that it teaches more organically that really speaks to me as somebody who loves literature. And so I find that I end up gravitating to Charlotte Mason in some ways, but still wanting to go to classical in others as it makes sense within our homeschool. So the purpose of putting this video out is that if you are like me and you find that you are just drawn to both, and for these different reasons, I want to encourage you that it is possible to do it. You just have to be very selective. So if you are new to these different approaches, let's do a brief explanation. So with the classical approach, you are looking towards this idea of the trivium, of teaching children in stages. So you have grammar stage where you're memorizing a lot of facts and kind of laying the foundation. We're doing a lot of phonics, we're doing math facts, we're just memorizing a lot of information. This is the idea of children are sponges, and so they're soaking up all the information. Then you have your logic stage, which is where they are starting to learn to apply this to their own lives. And then in your rhetoric stage, you are learning to put the information out into the world and kind of apply it to your worldview and things like that. Classical education goes really, really deep. You're not going to do as many things. You're going to do fewer things, but with great excellence. And you're going to read fewer books, but they're going to be very hard books. You're going to read them multiple times and go very, very deep into these books. It involves Latin earlier. It involves a lot of training of the mind. And so it's a very intensive way of teaching. There is a lot of memorization, not just scripture or poetry like Charlotte Mason has, but a lot of memorization of grammar rules and facts and things like that. That goes across the board in all subjects. And it is a very structured way of teaching. Now, Charlotte Mason, there's some overlap within it because they are, like Charlotte Mason also believes in teaching Latin, but they might pull it out into a little bit of a later stage. Still lots of classic literature, but you're actually going to read a lot of classic literature, and you're going to, instead of helping them to understand what it is they're reading, you're going to allow them to pull things from the text themselves to understand it better themselves. I think so. Classical does not use textbooks either, but they would allow textbooks on some instances, whereas Charlotte Mason would not allow textbooks within a purist format. There is a heavy focus on narration, especially in the early years. It's a lot of verbal narration followed by written narration as they get older. Copy work and dictation and is a lot in how grammar is taught. Spelling is taught through a lot of copy work and dictation. and it is thought to be more organic when it comes to learning spelling and grammar. There is some light instruction within grammar because you can't just read things and know what a noun is based off of, reading from a book. You have to still teach that, but they're going to read a lot of it, and then you're going to just very gently introduce it. And the thought process is they will have done so much reading at this point that it comes very naturally, like, oh, that just makes sense, and it clicks in their brain. Habit training is a very big focus within Charlotte Mason. There is this idea of that education is an atmosphere, a discipline, and a life. So you're talking about bringing education into being more of a lifestyle, and the whole idea of lifelong learning. So why I am blending them. A lot of times you can kind of get into, at least I find that I fall into this, where I want to label us as a specific type of homeschool, like we are this type of homeschool or that type of homeschool. We're Charlotte Mason or we're classical. We need to pick one. And so it felt very much like I needed to kind of like pick a side, if you know what I mean. I finally came to this realization that it is our homeschool, and it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I kind of mentioned that in this video that I will link above about how respecting your children as people whenever it comes to giving them the kind of education that they need. Even just viewing our homeschool, I am trying to do better about realizing it doesn't have to be all or nothing, and we can take the bits and pieces that we love, that I love, and that my children love about each style of education and kind of blend them together to make our own unique homeschool. So I have found that the strengths of each of these types of homeschooling kind of complement each other. And a lot of people may disagree with me on that one, but the things that I'm wanting to pull from the classical actually do go very well with the things that I'm wanting to pull from the Charlotte Mason way. So for example, I love history, and teaching history chronologically, it really just makes so much sense to my brain, giving context for why certain things happened at certain times. I think that's really important when it comes to understanding why certain peoples did what they did. And so teaching it in the chronological way, but using living books and using narration to re-emphasize and making sure that they're retaining the information, and using a lot of books to make it very robust and very enjoyable. So history isn't dry and just memorizing a lot of dates. We still do a lot of memorization. We still use the classical conversations timeline songs so that way they're understanding when things happened and memorizing maybe not necessarily specific dates, but the order of history, so that they can understand as we're reading and we hear about Napoleon. Oh, well, they remember that from the timeline song. So what am I keeping from each of these different types of styles? So from classical, what I am wanting to keep is we are keeping grammar. I love teaching grammar from a younger age. Again, I don't really start formal grammar until second grade, but Charlotte Mason would say to not start it until at least fourth grade, and even then it's more gentle. I like to do structured grammar with my kids. I love Memoria Press and how they do it. We do tweak Memoria Press a little bit with their grammar because it does feel like a lot. And so I do kind of pare some of it down, and we really focus on the recitation part and then doing a little bit of practice each day to make sure they're understanding the concepts. We're also keeping our Latin and sticking with Memoria Press to do Latin from second grade on, because I do love the way that Latin very naturally teaches grammar. It also trains the brain to be able to do hard things, which I love. And logic, I am teaching logic. We haven't started it with my younger kids yet because I just have one getting into the logic stage, but actually taking a formal logic course, they will hit that whenever they get into middle school. We are going to start really ramping that up, and then having the structure of subjects rather than having this big feast of all of these subjects. We are having a little bit more structured and a little bit more pared down, so that way it is not so overwhelming. because I found that with Charlotte Mason is that I got overwhelmed with all of the moving parts and all of the components. So we are still doing like composer studies, and we're going to do artist studies and stuff like that, but it's going to be a little bit more light on that. It's going to be much more literature focused and history focused, which is the part of the neoclassical that I am keeping. What I am doing from the Charlotte Mason side is sticking to narrations. We are still doing lots and lots of narrations. Every time we do a reading, they have to do a narration, and then making sure that we are including tons of living books. So we are not going to be using very much of the textbooky side, with the exception of some of our science stuff. That my kids do enjoy with science, having the actual textbook. I love the idea, and I've looked into the nature studies. I've mentioned it before. I have a hard time getting into nature studies, so I'm not sure that it's something I would ever be able to really push myself out into doing. And so that is like the one area I'm willing to be a little bit more traditional, is just sticking with a science book that is still fun and engaging, but we're still going to give it a Charlotte Mason twist where we're not doing worksheets. It's still going to be very much narrations. And then my fourth grader is going to be doing one written narration from science once a week. I think I might alternate between science and history. Like one week will be a science narration or written narration, and the next week would be a history written narration, because we're doing written narrations once a week because he's in fourth grade. I do want to stick to trying to shorten our lessons, and how I'm going to be doing this, because some of our curriculum does run a little bit longer, is that I am going to do chunks instead of doing like sitting for an entire hour. So we are going to be doing, for example, our math takes about 45 minutes. So they're going to have their 30-minute math practice block. Then we're going to move on to some read alouds. And then after that, we might do math lessons. And then we might do a composer study. And then we'll do our Latin work. So that way we're keeping the idea with the Charlotte Mason flow of pairing things and putting them in order. So that way it gives the brain a chance to switch over into something different, and it helps them to rest their brain a little bit, so we don't have to take as many breaks within our day. Another thing I am saving from classical is recitation. And this is something I'm really excited about, because I'm actually going to put some cards out. I am putting some things together. I'm starting an Etsy shop that will have some stuff available for you to purchase if you are interested. And one of the things I'm going to put out there is my recitation cards that I am creating by grade level. And it will be things like, there's going to be some grammar within it, but there's also going to be some history, some science facts, some theology and doctrine that's going to be mixed in there. I am going to try to be very careful that the theology that comes into it is things that are held by pretty much all Protestants. And so it won't be anything on baptism or anything like that. It's going to be across the board. Pretty much if you're a Protestant, you could order the recitation cards, and it will have the things that you would agree with for the most part, I would think. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we do differently now. I have completely scrapped our literature logs. I am having my kids go back to doing just verbal narrations for their reading. And again, we are just reading a lot of books. I'm assigning books for them to read. I am trying to find books that are both not twaddle, but also books that they are really going to enjoy, that kind of stretch them a little bit, that show them that there are books out there that are maybe a little bit more challenging, or maybe books that they wouldn't have naturally gravitated toward, but they actually end up liking them, which has been most of the books that we have gone through. We've only had a handful of duds so far this year. One of the things that I kind of didn't like whenever I was first exploring classical was how few books it felt like. Like you felt like the kids were just reading about 5 books per year, and they were doing all of this writing on it, and it didn't feel like it was going to breed that love of reading that I was really wanting to see in my children. It made it feel like it was going to be something that was a chore, and I don't want them to associate reading with being a chore. I want them to end up reading books that are hard, that maybe challenge them, but I think that's very different. So that was why I ended up pulling more Charlotte Mason in with the literature side of it. Is I want them to love to read. I love reading, and I want that for them as well. Okay, so my final encouragement to you is just remember that I mentioned this in a recent video as well. You don't have to be married to one specific style. Take what works for you. If there's something else in a different style that works better, use that, because your children are different, you're different. And so it's good to let go of the things that don't serve your homeschool. I mean, it doesn't make you a bad homeschool mom. It's okay. I promise it's okay. If anything, it will make you a better homeschool mom if you are willing to make changes because it works better for your family. And then just keep a pulse on your kids, on how they're doing. If they need something pulled in and some more structure in one area, you can always do that. There is nothing set in stone. So I hope this video is helpful for you. I'm curious if you blend multiple styles of homeschooling. Drop it in the comments. What do you do? What pieces of which style do you like to pull in? So if this video was an encouragement to you, please be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you have not already. As always, my Instagram handle is up in the top corner. I think this way, maybe. If not, it's the other way. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.